What if Billy Edwards is the starter for Maryland football?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Let's talk about the Maryland quarterback battle, and what if Billy Edwards is the starter for Maryland football? So I think I've gone on a couple of rants and have said MJ Morris is going to be the starter. I know for a fact, I'm really sure that MJ Morris is going to be the starter for Maryland football. But what if I'm wrong? And what if all these people are wrong that keep saying MJ Morris is a starter? Because Coach Locksley hasn't said who the starter is yet, hasn't said anybody has had a lead. And I just thought it felt like MJ Morris was a starter. I felt like he was our most complete quarterback. I felt like he does the most, and I felt like he had the most experience as well. And I thought what he did with his legs and his combination of his arm could provide us with a lot of really good play at the quarterback position. But Billy Edwards, of course, has been in the Maryland system for a couple of years now and has been playing under Coach Locksley for a while now. So he understands what Coach Locksley likes. He understands how to do things. He understands the best way to go about it. He understands the Maryland football way. And so I think I don't think it's a done deal that MJ Morris is definitely the starter. I think I could be wrong. I doubt it. I'll be honest. I'm going to tell you guys, I think that MJ Morris is the starter, but I do think there is a world in which Billy Edwards is a starter. And I think it could come a couple different ways. It could come MJ Morris just isn't ready and hasn't gone through the Maryland system quite well, and he hasn't figured things out yet. And it kind of felt like in the spring game, MJ Morris has started to figure things out. He looked pretty good in the Maryland football spring game. He was the offensive MVP. He took the first team reps split with Billy Edwards, and I thought he looked pretty good throwing the football. It was nothing crazy, but he just had an efficient type of day, and he looked a little bit better than Billy Edwards had. But there is a world where MJ Moore struggles in this system. He struggles this summer heading into the actual games. Of course, they have the summer camp, and you hear all these different things about the football, college football in their summer camp. You see all these different things. I don't know if you guys are on TikTok, but I've seen some things where it's like it's an absolute struggle. It's an absolute grind. And what if MJ Morris struggles through that? He struggles through the summer camp going into the fall, and he struggles through those practices over the summer, and he doesn't look great, and he doesn't look like he's ready to be the starter. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I don't think it's like a crazy, insane take to say that MJ Moore struggles in the new Maryland system, and Billy Edwards is out there doing a lot with his legs, running around all over the place, getting that quarterback run game going, and he's looking really good throwing the football. Maybe he looks improved. He looks more accurate. He knows the system. He knows, okay, they're running cover 2 there. Oh, I know I'll have this look against that. Oh, they're running cover 3 there. I know we'll have that look against that. Oh, there's a read option play for 15 yards down the field. Oh, there's a quarterback draw. Oh, now I'm going to bang it over the top, throw it over to Ty Felton. I could see a world where Billy Edwards could be the starter for Maryland football because he's outplaying not only MJ Morris, but also Cameron Edge because he's had the most experience in the Maryland system. But he's just playing better than MJ Morris and Cameron Edge. And I don't think that's an insane thing to say. But my thing is, what if Billy Edwards is the starter? What does it mean for the Maryland football team? One, I think we have to change our offense a good amount. I don't think we can play the same way that we played last year. I don't think that will work if Billy Edwards is a starter. I don't think that's how you go about things. I think you have to change some things up. I think it's more about the run game. And I know this year, no matter who the quarterback was, I wanted it to be about the run game because I thought that was going to be super important. I want it to be centered around Roman Hemby and Nolan Ray and Colby McDonald because I don't know if we can play high-level football if it's not that way, because I don't know if we have enough experience. I don't know if we have the right quarterback to play where we lead the Big Ten in passing attempts. Like, that can't happen, specifically if Billy Edwards is a starter. I don't think you're going to just throw it as much. I think you're going to have it centered around the run, really, if any of these guys are the starter, but specifically if Billy Edwards is the starter. I think you hand it off more times than not. You completely change your identity. You might go from being first in passing attempts in the Big Ten to probably at the bottom of the Big Ten in passing attempts, and you want to play probably a more controlled clock, you focus on the run game and what Billy Edwards does with the run game, what he should be able to do with his own legs that should open up things for Roman Hemby. It's like, when you watch Justin Fields or when you watch Lamar Jackson, those teams are so much have a lot easier of a job to run the ball, and it's a lot easier for the running backs to get going because of the threat of the quarterback to run the ball. And when the quarterback has that threat of using their legs, it's a lot harder to stop their run game in a hold, not just to stop the quarterback run game, but it's harder to stop the running back run game as well, and any parts of the run game. It's harder when your quarterback can run the ball. And I think that with Billy Edwards as a starter, you want to hand it off a ton and make it hard to really defend the run game, and you want to depend on that run game to win games. You're going to depend on Billy Edwards to rush for a lot of yards. We've seen it. When he plays, he's going to run. He's going to tuck it. There's going to be a lot of design type of run plays. If you remember against Michigan, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. Short yardage should be pretty automatic with Billy Edwards in terms of 3rd and 1s, 4th and 1s, or goal line opportunities on the 2-yard line. It should almost always be a quarterback sneak because Billy Edwards is too big. He's too athletic not to get those yards down in the goal line, down on 4th and 1, 3rd and 1s, wherever you are when you need it. And I think that when you have a kid like that, and I think even if Billy Edwards isn't the starter, you probably want to put him in those type of opportunities. So I think if Billy Edwards is the starter, I think you're going to be really good in the short yardage game. And I think you're going to be able to do some really special things in the run game and in the quarterback run game. He might lead the Big Ten in quarterback rushing yards. I think that would be a realistic expectation for him. I'm trying to think of other names in the Big Ten who like to rush the ball as much as Billy Edwards did if he was the starter, but I think he would be up there towards the top. And not only will he be one of the quarterback leaders in rushing, I think he'll just be overall one of the leaders in rushing, including the running backs. And I'm not saying he's going to be like a 1,000-yard rusher or anything like that, but he does have a chance to put up a really solid year rushing the football. But what does it mean throwing the football? If we've been real, he's been really inconsistent throwing the football whenever he tends to play. And that's going to be one of the biggest question marks for Billy Edwards is, can he throw the football consistently enough? Can he get it to our pass catchers, Caden Prather and Ty Felton? And those 2 guys are probably 2 of our best players on the team. Can you get them the ball? Because they need the ball. They're really good players, and we want them to have the ball. And with Billy Edwards as the starter, it's like, are you going to be able to do that at a high enough level for Maryland football? I'm unsure if that's going to be the case. And I could see a world where we're not a very good passing team next year. It could be like, I'm telling you, it could be completely opposite of what happened last year. It could be completely different of a team. Oh, last year we struggled running the ball some. Oh, we're going to be a really good, solid running football team. Last year we were great passing the ball at times and led the Big Ten. Oh, it's going to be the complete opposite. We're going to be probably one of the worst teams in the Big Ten because I haven't seen games where Billy Edwards consistently is accurate, consistently puts the ball where it needs to be. Even in the Music City Bowl game where he won offensive MVP, I don't know if that performance was as good as a lot of people may have thought. He did some really good things rushing the football with his legs, but overall, if you look at the stats from that game, he was very inaccurate throwing the football, and he missed a lot of throws, probably that we want to have when he played in that Music City Bowl game. If you looked at it, he was 6 of 20, 30% completion rate. That's not completion percentage. That's not going to get it with an average of 6.3 yards. And the big thing was he had a long of 61. That's really the big reason why on that Roman Hemby short screen pass, Roman Hemby really carried that passing game that day with that screen pass. And so I'm looking at him as a passer, and I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be particularly good when he plays. I just don't think that it's going to be great. In 2022, he went 28 of 46 with a completion percentage of 60%. And that's not terrible. He had to make a couple of starts, and 60% completion percentage from Billy Edwards is really not a bad mark with 3 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. He didn't play poorly, but he definitely missed open opportunities when he got the start when Talia was out 2 years ago. And so I think you could see a lot of missed opportunities down the field. You're not going to get those big plays over the top nearly as much as what you got with Talia. You're not going to get those big plays. Billy Edwards does have a strong arm, though. He can make a couple of throws that you could be like, oh, wow, that's a big-time throw. And the thing is, there's a difference between him consistently making those type of plays, but once in a while you could see a play where it's like, oh, wow, that's a big throw. But I don't think you're going to see it on a consistent basis, and I don't think it's something that Maryland could rely on next year. And so if he's the starter, I think you play a completely different way. I think it's a lot more run-centric. I think it's a lot different than if Cam Edge or MJ Morris was the starter. It's a lot of quarterback run stuff. You want to get the quarterback run stuff involved a lot. I think that's going to be a huge part of it. If you look at his run game in the Music City Bowl game, how many yards did he rush for? 13 carries for 50 yards, which is a pretty good mark. I know that's only 3.8 yards per carry, but he had a couple that were bad, and he had a touchdown as well. And so if he's playing, he's going to be a running quarterback. He's going to run a lot. But I think you're not going to get a lot of production from these receivers, and the stock of these receivers that I think might be the strength of our team could go down. And that's part of the reason why I think that MJ Moore should be the starter. I think that our wide receivers are too good not to get them the ball consistently. And so that's kind of how I think it goes down. If he is the starter, I think you change your game plan. You play a completely different game. But I do still think you could win games. I don't know if your ceiling is as high with playing with the guy that can't pass. Haven't seen him be able to pass the ball as consistently as he probably needs to be the starter. But I still think you're in a pretty good spot in the Big Ten. And I don't know if it changes a ton. I think there's benefits to both sides, but I do think that MJ Morris is still the starter. I just want to make that clear. But that's what I think will happen if Billy Edwards is the starter. We went over the X factors on the offensive side of the ball, but who are the X factors on defense? I will talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on the tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute tickets and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Who are the X factors for Maryland football? We went over some of the X factors on the offensive side of the ball, but I want to go over who are the X factors for Maryland football. Who are the game changers on the defensive side of the ball that not many people might be talking about, but some guys that could potentially make a difference, some guys that could play high-level football this year. And I have a couple of guys that I think could be an X factor this year on Maryland football's team that not enough people are giving credit to overall. And I'm going to start on the defensive line on the edge rushers. I have a couple of players that I think have a chance to be really impact players and X factors. One player is DJ Samuels. I thought he looked pretty good in the spring, and I've heard that he's had a pretty good spring, and he's going into his sophomore season, and I see him having a pretty big impact. I think DJ Samuels is a pretty high-level player, and I think he has a chance to have an impact in that pass rush rotation. He's not a guy that's going to start. We have a lot of guys that are going to be the starters for say, but I think that he has a chance to be a good player and be in rotation, and I think that will really help him overall and maybe being a starter in the next year. I think DJ Samuels is a talented type of player, and so I think that I wouldn't be surprised if he offers us a lot of pass rush, if he offers us some athleticism in some pass rushing spots. I know that we have Kellen Wyatt and Donnell Brown and Kayshawn Fuller and some really good players on that kind of front, but I do think that DJ Samuels is good enough to get in at times and make an impact for Maryland football. My next player, I think, had a really good spring game. He was hurt last year, but I was excited to watch him, and I thought he had a chance to be a really good player as a freshman in Neo Avery, same position as DJ Samuels, coming off the edge for Maryland football. I'm watching this kid playing during the spring game, and I'm like, whew. I think that Neo Avery is going to be a dude for Maryland football. I think he's going to be a really good player and have a chance to do some really big things for Maryland football. He looks like he had energy coming off the edge. He looks like he's ready to go from that injury, and he's big. He's like 6'6", 270 or something like that now. He's a pretty big kid, or maybe it was closer to 260, 250, but I think that he has a chance with his size and athleticism to make a real impact coming off the edge for the Terps. And I'm going to be interested to see what he does. And not many people are going to know this kid, and I think he's an X factor. And it's interesting that he plays the same position as DJ Samuels, but I do think that he gets in the rotation and does some pretty good things on the edge for Maryland football. He just made a couple plays in the spring game that got me excited. He was a 4-star from a lot of recruiting websites coming out of high school. So a lot of people had expectations for him to be a really good player, but I think finally it's his chance to show that. And I think that he will do that this year. He didn't get to do much of that his freshman year, but I think this year he has a chance to be able to do that for Maryland football overall. Another player that I think has a chance to make an impact is Michael Harris. Going into his sophomore season, was a 4-star recruit linebacker out of Florida, and I've been waiting for this kid to kind of make an impact. I think this rising sophomore class has a lot of guys that didn't really play much last year, but have a chance to make more of an impact on this year's team. And I think that he's one of those type of guys for Maryland football that have a chance to make an impact. I think he's a really talented linebacker. I think you can do a couple different things with him. He had to get stronger, but in terms of athleticism and being able to move at the linebacker position, he's going to be able to do that. And he reminds me a lot of Ruben Hippolyte in a lot of ways, but I think he has a chance to be maybe even better than Ruben Hippolyte was. And Ruben Hippolyte was a very good player for Maryland football, but he has a chance to do some special things. I just been waiting for him to kind of break out and show that he's the kind of player that I think he is, but I do think he has the opportunity to do that this year, and I'll be interested to see kind of how it comes together for him, how he'll play. But I think that Michael Harris, is the type of guy that could make an impact for Maryland football and do some kind of special things that maybe we aren't used to, and I think and put together a special a special year for Maryland football. That linebacker room is kind of deeper than you probably would want it in terms of, and not in terms of how you want it as a fan or as a coach, but in terms of for him, in terms of getting on the field with Ruben Hippolyte and Gote and Caleb Wheatland. It's going to be hard for him to get consistent minutes, but Maryland football loves to play a bunch of different guys. It's a theme that I'll talk about a lot. And so the reason I think he's an X factor is because they're going to give him an opportunity to play. They love playing different guys. So he's going to have the opportunity to play. He's going to have the opportunity to make an impact. And so if he does the right thing, if he plays at a high level, which I think he can, he's going to have a chance to play for Maryland football and give them good minutes. And I think that's entirely a possibility for Michael Harris. And so those are my 3 guys that I think are going to be an impact and or going to be potential X factors, guys that we don't expect to make an impact, but make an impact, guys that might not be getting talked about enough, but guys that I think could play at a pretty high level for Maryland football overall. Let's talk about a transfer. Maryland just got a new player in the portal. We will talk about that right now. Maryland lands new Oklahoma kicker Gavin Marshall. So he transferred from Oklahoma, and this is a pretty big deal. Gavin Marshall was committed to Vanderbilt, but has decided to switch to Maryland. And we know how important kicking play is for the Terps. And so for them to get this kid is a pretty big deal. He didn't do a ton at Oklahoma. It's interesting. He did handle the kickoff. He did handle the kickoff opportunities in the kickoff. But he didn't do a ton in terms of actually kicking field goals for Oklahoma. But he is a guy that was really highly recruited coming out of IMG Academy. And he has 3 years of eligibility remaining after spending the last 2 seasons with Oklahoma. He didn't see a ton of action, which is what I was saying. He redshirted in 2022, and he made both of his extra point attempts that he got in 2023, but he didn't do a ton. Besides, he did handle the kickoff duties, like I said, because he's got a powerful leg. One thing's for sure, if he's going to kick it off, it's probably going through the back of the end zone. And so you get a guy that has some leg strength, which is important. You want a guy that can kick it hard and has a leg, because that just opens up kind of the opportunities and his ceiling as a kicker and what he can become if you have one of those strong legs in terms of making longer field goals, in terms of making deeper field goals from past probably like the 48, 49. It's not the NFL, so 50 yards isn't like light for a lot of these guys. When you get to 50 yards, it's a struggle for a lot of these kickers, but he has a chance to be able to get past that kind of spot and be able to make field goals, I think, beyond the 48, 49, getting into the 50, 51s, because I think he has a powerful leg. It's just channeling that powerful leg overall. But he did have a lot of offers coming out of IMG. He had Florida State, had Army, Air Force, Arizona State. So he had different, he definitely had different offers. And it's interesting because redshirt junior Jack Howes was the Terps' primary kicker last season, made 13 of 19 field goals attempts and 46 of 47 extra point attempts, and was a pretty solid player. But some competition in the kicking room, I don't think ever hurts. Competition anywhere on your football team doesn't hurt. We talk about the quarterback room and the competition there. I think it's going to be a battle. I think it's going to be interesting to see who comes out. But the kicking competition is also a thing that matters as well. I don't think you want to just undermine competition at any kind of port. And I haven't talked about the Maryland kicking game, but in terms of X factors on the team, things that I never talk about is the kickers, but those could be the guys that make a difference in a lot of these games. And if you have a good kicker, it feels good. You feel like you're more confidence. You feel like you could win different games when you're driving down. You have confidence to kick that ball. But when you don't, you can go through some bad times as a football team. You can ask a bunch of different college NFL teams who have had kicking issues. You can go through some different problems when you have a poor kicking rotation or a kicker or whatever it may be. But I think this kid has a chance to be a pretty solid player if he puts it together. It's obviously hard to live up to Chad Ryland and what he did as a player a couple of years ago for Maryland football and when he got drafted to the Patriots, but struggled definitely in his rookie year. But I think that for Maryland, I think that getting this kid Gavin Marshall is still going to be a pretty good thing. And it was good that we flipped him from Vanderbilt. Seems like he wants to be a Terps. Seems like he wants to be a Maryland Terrapin. So it's a good thing that I think we got this kid Gavin Marshall and we're able to flip him from Vanderbilt and coming from Oklahoma. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.